Welcome back, and on this video we're answering the question, are all Seventh-day Adventists vegetarian? And it's a really random question to ask of a particular faith, but I will admit that it is asked about us for a reason. So I'm going to explain to you why most people think that all Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarian. So let's have a look at what the Bible has to say. In Genesis chapter 1, we have the first reference of directions and specification that God gives as to what Adam and Eve were to eat in the Garden of Eden. And if we were to label that today, it would be a whole foods, plant-based diet. And that's really important for us to understand, because in the perfection of the Garden of Eden, in the perfection of what the conditions were and who we were prior to sin, that was the perfect diet for us. So if we try and really think about, what God's ideal is without sin, it would be a plant-based diet. I also like to just compare it to if a car is made for a specific type of fuel and we accidentally put in the wrong type of fuel, we're going to have a really expensive visit to the mechanics. The car was made for a specific type of fuel, and I like to compare our bodies in the same kind of way. Our body was made for a specific type of fuel so that we could run at our best. And that is basically the main reason why many Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarian, or maybe if we go a little bit further, why many of them are vegan or completely 100% plant-based. So that is a really important aspect for you to consider. In addition to that, in Daniel chapter 1, Daniel makes a decision that he's going to continue eating the same diet that he was eating before he came to Babylon. And that is really important as well for us to understand that even in the context of a new location or in a new country, he made a decision that he was going to continue with what was his diet prior to him coming to this new place. In addition to that, I believe that within the context of us living in this world, that there are definitely healthier options, and that there is definitely God's ideal for our diet and what we are to eat and what we are to consume. So that is those references. In heaven, there will be no death. Nothing will be killed. No animal will die, and no animal will be sacrificed. So in order for there to be no death and to not have animals being killed or sacrificed for food, we would have to assume that it is going to be a plant-based diet again once we're in heaven in the New Jerusalem. So if the ideal before sin and the ideal after sin is a plant-based diet, then I'd like to hope that that's probably the ideal still. That's what I opt for, and that's what many Seventh-day Adventists tend to opt for. Where am I in the scheme of this thing? I will admit, I used to be like a kilo steak challenge kind of meat eater. I used to specifically go to restaurants where you were challenged to eat a kilo of meat. So I was a really big meat eater. My husband and I, we both were. We used to eat like family feasts from KFC, just the two of us. So we consumed a lot of meat, and we were Seventh-day Adventists probably for about 10 years before we made a decision to go vegetarian. And then after 2 years of that, we made the decision to go completely plant-based, aka vegan. So it is something that you make based on your own convictions. I definitely began looking at the scientific research that backed up a plant-based diet, and I just felt very convicted that not only is the Bible guiding me and promoting me to make the decisions for a plant-based diet, but once I looked at the research and the science, I was like, okay, I really can't. So I can't keep denying the evidence that God continues to present. So I am at home, we are 100% vegan, but when we do go out to social outings or community events, it is a lot harder to be totally 100% plant-based. So there is a bit of room, eat sort of whatever is there, just to not complicate things for people. But we are definitely 100% vegetarian when we do go out to specific events. So we do not consume any type of meat or animal flesh in any way. That we're definitely very convicted on quite strongly. All right, so where does the church stand in this? I think this is probably why a lot of people perceive the church as being vegetarian, and every Seventh-day Adventist that ever lived being vegetarian. Our functions or our church events are predominantly vegetarian. They're not 100% plant-based vegan, but they are vegetarian. And in addition to that, I would say 90% of our church events and church functions are vegetarian or vegan. There is still some churches that do consume meat, and they do run events where there is meat provided for people to eat. So there is a certain amount of people within our denomination who still organize events where meat is consumed. Now, do you have to be baptized? Like, in order to be baptized, do you have to be a vegetarian? No, you don't. And that is one thing that I really wanted to clarify. There is no prerequisite for baptism that you must be vegetarian. But there is additional information that I will go into in another video regarding clean and unclean meats. And the church probably has a stronger stance with regards to the kind of meat that we eat rather than if we eat meat or not. So you will find Seventh-day Adventists who still consume meat, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You won't be treated any kind of way. But predominantly you will see that our church does promote, does educate, and does encourage people to make the healthiest choice that they can. And yeah, wherever you can fit along that scale of how much meat you consume or not, that's totally up to you. But obviously we do believe that there is enough biblical evidence to promote 100% plant-based diet as God's ideal and the fuel that he made for us to function off primarily. So that's that. I hope that was enough information about Seventh-day Adventist. If you have another question about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, make sure to ask the SDA Insider.